Hi everybody, welcome back. So in this video, I wanted to talk about a topic that is of interest to a lot of you guys, mainly finding your first job in tech. And I think that looking at a lot of the different forums, you go on, Reddit or different discussion groups, things like that, you will generally see most people will say, get a job in help desk. And there's really not a lot of other kind of options that people suggest. Maybe a junior sysadmin, work your way into that department from somewhere else. As I've mentioned before, hiring yourself is a really useful thing. So you can, do some low level consulting, work on desktops, work on people's laptops, help them, upload a website to a service provider, things like that, build some experience and then kind of get to, one of those junior admin positions. And I stand by that. I still think that that's a really good way to go about doing this. But I think most people are going to generally be looking at existing companies, organizations, stuff like that in their environment that are, like a law office or a local business, things like that. One of the avenues I wanted to point you guys to is a junior position that you can probably get into, especially if you've got some certifications and things like that, that will allow you to get an entry level position, but be a significant amount of experience in a short period of time, because it's not just getting the first job, it's jumping into the jobs that actually, pay you a decent amount of money. And this is sort of a two kind of a two different tier approach, not a two-tier approach, but like a two different, you could define this two different ways. And that's looking for a job at a MSP. And by MSP, it could be a managed service provider, which I think is what a lot of people think of. But if you're coming to this from a Linux background, one other potential acronym that works as well that you may not have considered is a Microsoft Solution Partner, or Solutions Partner. I should have made that. So if you're coming from the Windows side, this is a pretty obvious choice, right? There's tons of different companies out there that are partners with Microsoft that do managed service stuff, right? So basically, a Microsoft solutions provider is a specific kind of managed service provider. So they're more or less kind of the same thing. But here's the big advantage when it comes to Microsoft service partners. They're partners, and Microsoft wants them to be easily identifiable. So if you go look around, if you go to the Microsoft website, if you do a search for Microsoft partner in your geographic area, you'll find one. And that cuts down a lot of effort on the job search. Because one of the things that we talked about before is most people go to job boards. They look at postings to find jobs. And another potential way to go and find a job is to go to a company physically or, virtually, and ask them if they have any open positions, because they may not be advertising for a position, but they might be on the fence. There's a good chance that they need someone to come on. Also, and this is the big downside, and as you want to getting into this, also the big upside of something like a managed service provider generally, or specifically a Microsoft one, is they burn out people at a massive rate, right? Once you get a little bit more senior, you do have some good benefits, and it may be worth it if you do a sort of cost benefit analysis on it. So there will be some people that, their career is specifically doing managed service stuff. But usually, aside from the owner and maybe a small core team, those are the only ones that stick around. Aside from that, what happens is they find people who don't have a lot of experience. They either help them get certifications or they hire people with existing certifications, and they know that they're going to be able to squeeze as much out of that person in a year, 2 years, 2.5 years, something like that, before that person says, God damn it, this is ridiculous, I quit. Right? So it's one of those things where going into it, be aware you're going to work long hours, you're going to get phone calls, it's going to be a hassle, but you can get a good amount of experience. Now, here's the really neat part is generally speaking, if you are a Microsoft service partner, you have very little, if any, Unix or Linux experience. And the people who watch this channel, not exclusively, but for the most part, are coming at this from a Unixy, Linuxy background. I know that there's Windows people who watch the channel. I know that there's interest from a number of different sectors, people who don't work in tech at all, but are just kind of curious about this. But one area that you can look at as a potential avenue for you to get a job is places that don't have your skills. And an interesting about face has been happening in the market over the last couple of years, namely that Microsoft has done a complete 180 when it comes to Linux. So while they're obviously still going to be supporting Windows and Windows Server, a really big part of their business now is Azure. And Azure has a lot of Linux stuff. So there's a good chance that there's some demand. So if you have something like an LPI certification or a Red Hat certification and potentially a Microsoft certification, and this is, I will say that there is a value in Microsoft certifications. They are not nearly as valuable most of the time as other specialty certifications because one of the downsides is it's such a big area of expertise that just passing a certification really doesn't prove if you know the material or not. And this is true with entry level certifications, but Microsoft ones are kind of known for this. So it's still potentially a good entry level certification. Now, one of the really important things about this, and one of the general ideas that you can sort of extrapolate from this is that partners usually are required to have a certain number of people with certifications at their company to maintain their partner status. So sometimes, even if you're a complete meatball, right? If you are the most incompetent CCIE that exists, right? And you cheated on your exam and you went to one of those, test prep sites that just give you the questions that are on there, and you just memorize it, and you don't really know anything about routing, or you're just good at memorizing stuff. A lot of times they'll be more than happy to keep you on. Now that's not quite as true as it used to be back in the day when CCIEs were incredibly rare and there was like 10 on each continent, right? But there's still some truth to that. And hopefully, if you're watching this channel, you are by definition an intelligent, smart, probably handsome individual, right? You've got excellent taste at least. So, so you're not that person with no skills. You're somebody who hopefully does have some skills or is working on attaining those skills. So if you can take a certification and you can couple that with your existing knowledge, skills, and expertise, and things like a home lab and having stuff that you can show that you've done, well, if I had a managed service provider and I saw somebody come in who said, hey, I don't know if you guys are hiring right now, but if you are, I've got some Linux certifications. And I know that may not be the bulk of your business, but I think it's something that might be pretty interesting to have as part of your skill sets that you can deliver to customers. And I've been looking at working on this. Is you can do this even if you don't have the existing certification. I've been studying a little bit for my MCSE. I was wondering if you're hiring anybody for help desk, because I think I'd be a really good fit for the role. And I'm looking specifically to increase my skills and build some experience. I'd be pretty psyched if I was the owner of that business. So that's something that you could definitely look at. And you can also sort of extrapolate this out to other things, right? So if you had, Cisco skills and you want to be more of a network admin role, You could go look at that. If you wanted to maybe make a little bit more money, you could go look at companies that specialize in enterprise equipment. So you could go look at a company like, you know, Dell/EMC, and you may not be able to get a job at Dell or EMC if you're in a smaller area of the country, but you could probably either contact them or look on their website and see, do you have any partners? And at that point, what you could go do is you could go look at what the requirements are to potentially become a partner. And if they have a certification where it's, you need to have this certification for, your thing, well, you might want to go out and look at getting that certification. Could be a bit of work, but that's, what you're looking at doing, right? That's what a job is. That's what a career is, work. So if you're somebody who puts that in proactively, um, you could be setting yourself up for potentially a pretty interesting gig. And Dell was just one that I sort of pulled out of my hat because they sell a lot of servers. They have partners. Same could be said for IBM. You could do the same thing for, any kind of big company that works in the enterprise space. But because Microsoft has had this huge dominance for such a long time, and the rest of the market is very fragmented, right? So you've got, Red Hat, you've got SUSE, you've got Ubuntu, you've got IBM, you've got all these sort of different, operating system providers and groupware providers and database providers and things like that. Microsoft is this one technology stack. I mean, I think that's one of their really big selling points is it's a one-stop shop, right? You come to Microsoft, we'll support you for everything when it comes to software. And that's something that most other companies can't do. There's a few of them, IBM, maybe things like that, Oracle. But you can almost certainly find a Microsoft service provider in your area, even if you want to go the Linux route, that might be very happy to employ you. Even if you're in a small city, even if you're, in Columbus, Ohio, which is not a tiny city by any means, but it's, not LA, it's not Silicon Valley, it's not New York, it's not Boston. Um, it's a much smaller market. There's probably several Microsoft service partners in Columbus. Check them out. Give them a call. Even if they can't hire you right now, if you call them up or you send them an email and you ask about it, and then you ask them, what are the things that would be really helpful for you to hire me, maybe in the interim, while you're looking for jobs, you target those certifications or the experience that they're looking for, and then you circle back 6 months from now or 3 months if you're really good and you just knock the certification out like boom, call them back up and say, hey, talked to you, a couple months ago, was really interested in working for you guys. I think it's going to be a really cool area for me. I can learn so much. You said that you needed, somebody with this certification, so I went out and got it. Do you think maybe I could come in and have coffee and we could talk about, if there's maybe something that could be open for me? And that might actually be a really nice way to do it. Is don't necessarily ask for an interview, because an interview is kind of a commitment from their side. It's like, okay, well, if we give them an interview, we're at least saying that there might be a job here, right? But if you say, can I have coffee with you? I'll treat. I'm broke as heck, but I'll treat. You're probably not actually gonna have to pay for coffee, or even if you do, it's only $5, right? So, especially if you're younger, right? If you're like 19 years old, 20 years old, and you take out some guy who owns a business running a service partner, he's probably not going to make you actually pay for coffee. Still try. Don't assume. If you ask him to go for coffee, the default assumption is you are paying for coffee and get him a scone or whatever, wherever you go. But there's a good chance he'll just pay for it anyway. So even if you're kind of broke, it's doable. Borrow money from a friend if you have to. And then sit down and talk with them. And don't just 100% focus on the job. This is somebody who owns a business. This is somebody who is at least risen to a certain level in tech. I don't know that I would want to go run an MSP. At some point, who knows? I might. That might be a direction I go. I've done consulting and stuff, but having a whole company around it is a lot more obligation and there's service level agreements and stuff that you need to go through. But that's a person who's built a business, and that's a huge skill. And one of the avenues that you can go in tech is being self-employed, being able to go start a company, whether that's technology consulting or that's, a startup company, all of those things, that's useful skills. So this is an interesting person that you're talking to who probably could give you some very good advice. So it might behoove you to, yeah, make it very clear that you would love to work for them and that you are actively trying to find out what are the things that you can do to qualify for a position there. But also pick his brain. Say, while I'm looking, or while I'm trying to go find a job working for a company in tech, something like your, where I can learn a lot, in the interim, I'm trying to do a little bit of consulting on my own, just with, friends and family and friends of friends and acquaintances, things like that. Is there any advice that you can give me? And you know what? The person who's running this company probably started out that way. And people like other people who are like them. Right? So not only is it going to be good for getting advice, it's also very handy as a way to bond with that person. And if that person likes you and thinks, you know what, this kid has some promise, they remind me of me. And everybody thinks, for the most part, that whoever they are is the best way to be. Well, they might take a chance on you. They may, even if there's not necessarily a role that they were thinking about filling, they might say, this is somebody that I could bring on because they show enough potential that even if we need to go create a position, it might be worthwhile. So anyway, that's a little bit of kind of a sort of job searching hack. I don't know. It's just an avenue that I thought maybe some of you guys had not considered, because Microsoft is not the default go-to when you're thinking about Unixy jobs or DevOps positions or things like that. And if you're trying to go pure DevOps and you're starting off in your career, it might actually make more sense to shoot for some development positions first. But I do think you need to have a solid understanding of IT operations generally if you're going to want to be in a kind of a what people are calling a DevOps role, even though that started off as sort of a philosophy of how to go run an organization. You want to know about that side as well. So the takeaway is, if you want to be getting a job in tech to sort of start that ball rolling, this is one avenue where you might go look at to get some experience and, a first job where you can make a couple bucks. Probably not great money. And really go into it knowing that this is probably going to burn you out a little bit. So what you're doing is you're investing time in a job so you can just rack up a bunch of stuff to put on your resume. One of the very nice things about working at a company that's doing consulting, which is effectively what they're doing, is because there's so many different clients, you'll be able to get exposed to a whole bunch of different technologies, and you'll be able to go ahead and put that on your resume and look very appealing for your second job. Also, it's very handy to kind of narrow down what your focus might be. So it may be that you start off thinking that you want to have one kind of job. Maybe you want to be a network admin. You want to do, Cisco switches and routing and all that kind of stuff. And then once you're in that world, you realize that a lot of people blame network admins for everything under the sun, right? If they can't figure out what their problem is, it's the network, right? You guys go fix it. And, maybe that's not worth it to you. Or maybe that's not the area that you find interesting. Or maybe you find it super interesting. Maybe you wanted to be a Unix admin originally. And then you say, and actually, I kind of like the Microsoft stack. That's fine too. This is about your job. And you can run Linux at home, and do Microsoft stuff at work. Plenty of people do. And that's not a bad thing. Now, if you're philosophically, somebody who is only going to be running open source software, free software, as it were, it's going to make your life a little bit harder whether you're doing pure Microsoft stuff or not. A lot of the, you know, um, software out there is just, it's the way that it's licensed, and the business models that are out there are not conducive to open source. I mean, if you look at, you know, most infrastructure, Cisco or otherwise, Juniper, what have you, they're almost all BSD derived. So they're based on some open source code. But if you look at, Free Software Foundation definitions, that's probably not, free software to their definition. It is to mine. You can get the source code, but then they can also go and modify it. So anyway, I'm getting off topic again. That's the idea. I hope it was helpful. I hope that this is a potential avenue that you can go look at to find a gig. I hope that you're successful with that. And thank you for watching the video. If you've enjoyed it, give this video a thumbs up. Feel free to share these with your friends if you know anybody else who is looking for jobs. Anytime I see, something coming in from an external source somewhere that I didn't post it, it's always really cool. If you post it somewhere, let me know. Like if you put a tweet out there, or if you post it on Reddit or one of those things for one of these videos, give me a shout and let me know that you did it, because I want to give you the credit for bringing in all those extra viewers and those likes and things like that. So yeah, thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your week. All the kind of stuff that you expect. Subscribe if you haven't. Like the video if you did. Thumbs up if you didn't. If you didn't like it, give me a comment. Let me know why, because I would always like to learn. So I'm gonna shut up now because I don't have anything else to say, and I'm terrible at ending videos. Right? Take care of yourself. See you guys next week.